we have this new website completely. And when you push it, you'll now have this new domain serve the website you have right here. And so with that, you'll see we start this video with you might just have some socials and you move from just rented free account to a $2 a year or maybe $10 a year account that has your own domain and the exact website that you want. In the last few videos, we set up your agents with Terminal and OneBrain for all of your agents. And today's video, we're gonna go through how you set up your own personal website where you can use to be a landing page for all the content that you have across the internet. And for a lot of you, that might be just your social media accounts today, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. For others, that might be Squarespace or Wix. And then first, we'll set up your own free GitHub page, which comes with a link that you can use as your landing page if you don't want to pay for anything. And then finally, we'll go through setting up your own custom domain that can be anywhere between $2 a year up to, on average, probably $10 to $15 a year. For most people, we're going to climb 2 levels. And if you don't want to pay for a website, you don't have to. And you can get a free website with a generic URL and a page live in less than 10 minutes, a generic link that anyone can go to learn more about yourself. And then if you have even $2, maybe even $10 to spare, get a permanent real estate on the internet with your domain that you can send people to. We no longer need to go to the rented and paid level, and we can skip right to the top 2 levels. So we're gonna use spaceships to buy our domain. And here, if you go to this website, you can search for a domain. And I'm just search for my name and then look and see what domains come up. And you'll see here that the .com one is taken, so I can't use that one. But if we scroll down, you can see you can buy domain as little as $1. And then ideally, I would prefer .com, but because we don't have that for this video, I'm just gonna use a different one, which is gonna be, let's use this one here, which is andytran.cc. It's short, sweet, only $3 for this video. So if you actually go into my website, this is a shorter version of that. And when you're looking for domains, you don't have to use the exact spelling of your name, but you can search that. And I'll search it again here, and you'll see that it comes up. And this is what we're gonna buy in this video. I'm gonna go to this GitHub repo, which I'll include in the description. This link here, go back to our terminal. And similar to our last video, we're gonna do git clone, and that will just download this project onto our machine. And then I'm gonna change the directory CD into that. And then down here, I'm gonna do Option C so I can look for a specific part of this. And so I'm gonna look for agent runbook. And if we do LT in the last video, we'll see the files that exist in here. Video will go through a few of those runbooks, but in the same way in the last video, we had this set up. I'm gonna open up a new agent here and then also open another agent here so that we can, so I'm gonna paste this in just to start that process. And I'll explain a little bit in a bit once it starts going. And then in the same way, I'm also gonna paste this one here to also start this to go. Just because these 2 things take a while, you can now see how they work while we kind of chat through what's happening. And I've set up a few additional things in this repo that we've already started to get the ball rolling. So you can already see that they're both running. And here, the bottom one basically started a agent browser setup. And at the top agent's already creating a repo, and we'll see what repo they're making in a second. But with GitHub Pages, it's a hosting site that you can use to basically get a free website. The only thing that you need there is you need a GitHub account. You need to set up a GitHub with a specific name, as you see here. And then finally, you also need the project to be public. And in that repo, you can have all that there. And now you'll see that the agent on the bottom is actually going through and entering all this in. And I've set this up with 1Password previously, and it might be simpler to do this yourself, but you can kind of see the potential and the possibilities once you set up some skills and tools so that agent can do this end to end. And one of the key requirements there is I've actually already created an account, set up payments, set up 1Password so the agent can work independently. And with that, you'll see that the agent's going through there. And because you can see that both of them can work in parallel, let's actually go through this website here. Let's go. And now you'll see that the agent got to the checkout page, and I'll tell it to confirm. Let's buy this. And then while we do that, let's open up this page now, and we'll see here that the first agent created a new URL that will be our homepage. And the video will go through kind of how we iterate on that, but you can set up your own homepage, your own personal website, add specific things into there. But let's go back into the agent and see what is working through. And then you'll see here, we went back to this agent and you'll see that it's in the checkout and we can watch it make that purchase on our behalf so that we can basically set this up. And since I've confirmed the agent's gonna click pay now. It's gonna purchase this domain. In order for us to do that, we did have to do a little bit of setup where we used 1Password in the command line to allow the agent to do that. You can kind of see the visa going through, and I'm gonna handle this myself because it'll need my code. So I had to put my credit card 2FA in, but then once that was done, then the domain was completed. And with that, the agent finished buying our new domain. And now that we have both our website here and as well as our domains, let's go back into this window here. And now we have our hosted website here, and we'll modify that and edit that later in this video. But if we go back into our agent here, we can now set it up for the last part of this. We're at the final stretch. We're gonna paste this new section in, which is just a prompt that connects these two agents together. And this is another skill that I'll talk about briefly as well as part of that code setup repo, which is once we set up, let's say the spaceship API, we can actually automate this now without using agent browser. And then now the agent is going to use the API through 1Password as well to just now set up that end to end. But if you already know how to do all that stuff and didn't know about GitHub Pages, you can automatically set up any custom website with that. And so we'll actually close out this session here because we no longer need this. So we're just going to exit this one here. And then now we'll just have this one here that is going to be running and deploying our new domain on this website. And so here you'll be able to see that we're in this docs website, or not website, docs project. And as you'll see here, the agent on the right has finished. So now let's actually go into this website and do command enter. And now you'll see we have set up our custom domain. And so in the same way, once you purchase the domain that you have, you set up your hosted website here, and then now you have this new domain here. And let's go back in here and have it close out that session. And then as we were going through before, we'll go into a deep dive of everything that we set up, but just wanted to show you the quick path like we did in the last few videos. And we'll go through more specifically some of the skills that we have here, which will allow you to do that. And you can choose to set that up individually. To walk through what we previously did, you can go directly to the URL in the YouTube description, or if you go to my website and you go to GitHub and then go to code setup, you'll be able to land in this page where we basically did everything. And you can look at the MD files on GitHub, or if you cloned it locally so that you can also use it with an agent. You can also open up an Obsidian. And so here we're gonna go through a really quick walkthrough. You can skip this chapter if you wanna get straight to the next section. I'll leave timestamps in the description for that. If you look in the terminal where we had the list tree, you'll see that in this code setup repo, we'll have the README for this video, which is the HTML site. And this is just the human view if you want to do everything manually. And in Obsidian, you'll be able to read that, go through it, understand at a high level what you need to do to set that up. So you can see if you're going to use the UI itself, you can do this all through the browser instead of using an agent to do it on your behalf. And these are the links that we're going to go through at the end. And if we go to the next section, here is where I provided of how to set up 1Password. You can see in the list tree, there are 4 runbooks, one of which is the setup for 1Password if you want to use 1Password. And the 3 that we went through or are going to go through in this video, depending on which chapter you're watching this. And these 3 runbooks are meant for you to just point at an agent, and the agent should be able to walk you through and confirm step by step what you need to answer in order for them to automate that for you. And if we go back into Obsidian here for 1Password, it's very simple. You set up a vault, a service account, and then you go through that to install the 1Password CLI and secure your service account password so that an agent can reach it. And this is optional because not everyone uses 1Password, but if you have this, it might streamline things. Once you set this up, this is the runbook that we went through today, which is allowing agent browser, which we set up in a previous video. And you can also ask an agent to install it on your behalf. And it'll allow you to work with with the agent while they execute the runbook on your behalf as well as the browser on your behalf. And then at the end of it, it'll either give you a confirmation or buy on your behalf depending on if you already confirmed that you wanted to buy it, like I showed in the video. But I still recommend going through the website yourself and looking for a domain that you want, looking at different prices as you can see as I did previously. And since this first one is just about buying a domain on Spaceship, the other one was completely independent, which is just setting up your basic GitHub page, which is free, and it just allows you to host your website. And we just set up a very generic hello world so that it doesn't have any particularly sensitive information yet, and will slowly build on top of that. And this requires you to have a GitHub account, have your GitHub account authenticated in the terminal that we set up in previous videos. And then finally, the last runbook is where the agent will use your Spaceship account, the new domain that you just bought, as well as the GitHub page that you set up to set up that custom domain. As part of the video as well, I also included some skills that you can use. And you'll see here that there's a 1Password skill. If you set this up, you can have the agent operate all that automatically, just saying using 1Password. And the same thing with the Spaceship API. And in the terminal, if we go back here, you'll see that previously I set this up in the YouTube project that we set up in the last video. And you can go into change directory, cd agents, and then skills. And then here, we'll do the list tree again. You'll see the 2 new skills that we've added. And you can tell the agent to add that to be a project level skill. And that's how we were able to just get this very simple, basic custom domain with Hello World that now you can customize to your own desire. So not that much, depending on if you have the money to spend. But you can think about this as your digital, where you continue to invest in and put any thing that you produce on the internet or any writing or work portfolio as proof of, and some people don't even know that moving up this pyramid can also be free. It doesn't have to be the site builders that you might pay for, where Squarespace, you might pay $25 a month or more, and you might have to pay for a custom domain on top of that. But now with AI, you can set this up very easily and you can move up the ladder to build proof and attract like-minded people or recruiters, hiring managers, so you can land your next job. Over time too, as you build out a following, people know where to find you, and if they change their algorithm or if they start to paywall some of your projects, you'll be able to bring them back home. Most recently, Instagram made a change where if you have an Apple link on your profile, it no longer redirects to the Apple Store. And so there's a workaround that you have to do in order to get people to organically come to your site. And that's the cost of rented and free. But you don't have to go so far as rented and paid, some of these site builders. Previously, they had a lot of value. AI has made it easier than ever to move from the third part of the pyramid, from rented paid, to the second and even the first one. So that's what we're gonna go through in the video today. You might be asking, why should I build a personal website? And with the recent development of AI making content so cheap, trust has become more important than ever. And you might feel some anxiety, or you might feel uncomfortable where you might not want to make content or build a following. But it's a simple change in mindset where instead of thinking about as building a following or being a content creator, you're just building trust and a reputation, being known for something. You have something to teach, and you might want to track other people who are similarly interested in those things as you. And so by putting yourself out there in the internet, people will know you for that and will slowly build trust with you for that. It's harder than ever to know what's real, but if you put your real name, your real face on the internet with a landing page that people can go to, they can slowly build trust to know what you're about. This is so that you can start building proof and trust. So what we have is your custom domain with your name on it, and over time you start putting out your first post, a project that you shipped, a guide that you wrote, and slowly over time you start to accumulate that trust and people start to know you for something. And at first it might barely matter, but then over time you are the go-to person for that, and maybe you are already like that for the people that you know. It's as simple as broadening your scope so that more people on the internet who are like-minded can find you and look for the expertise or opinions that you might have. And it no longer costs as much as it used to. You might have heard of Squarespace or Wix, where you're paying more than $200 a year in terms of website hosting, as well as custom domain that they might have added a lot of additional surcharges on. Now it's easier than ever to set that up with an agent. And all you need to do is even point an agent back at your website and tell them to create an HTML page on there. And it can be as cheap as, and it takes at most 10 to 20 minutes to set up. You might be thinking what makes a good personal website and what I should include on there. And I think the easiest thing to do is to just reference one of the templates or a website that you already like, so it can kind of capture some of the taste that you already have. But if you need a place to start, a good personal website answers 3 questions: who you are, what you've done, and how to reach you. You can translate that into context, credibility, and context. Using these 3 C's, it's easy to set your own personal website up and allow people to find you. The goal is to be discoverable. I used to be guilty of this as well, where I wanted to stay invisible, anonymous, didn't want people to find me. And a part of that was I didn't think I had anything interesting and useful to share. But in reality, we all have our own shared experience, and people want to know your own unique experiences. And even though some of the things that you have to say have already been said, they don't have your own flavor to it, where your unique stories and experience makes it something to connect over, to build that trust. So let's say you've now decided you're ready to build your website. One thing to keep in mind is MVP. It's the smallest thing that does the job today. Also stands for minimum viable product, a very common term and used in software development, where instead of building the car all at once, where you have to build all the individual components and have a much more complex system, you might not need a car today. In order to get to your end destination, all you might need is a skateboard. And then you build that skateboard first, and when you realize you needed to get a little bit farther, you build a bike. And then when you get to that point where it makes sense to build a car, you then build that car. And the same way with software as well as a personal website, you can build a very complex full stack back-end and front-end system for something that no one will really ever go to. Or you can just build out the most simple hello world HTML page, get that started, then build out a templated version of just your context, contact, credibility. And then when you feel like you know what you're doing, or you want it to be a lot more dynamic and engaging, you might switch that to be a full stack React or Next.js application. But if you try to build the car first, you might give up before you even get to the first destination. So in this video, we had a very deliberate choice to use a very boring HTML that gets the job done. And sometimes you might choose something more than that, but not because you wanted a landing page or a personal brand or personal website, but because you wanted to learn the different technologies, which has a use in itself. And so just because we're not using the professional stack, as you see here, doesn't mean that we won't get there. Simple doesn't mean it's a compromise. Simple is simply the strategy. We can freely host that one file that serves our website. And as you can see in the templates, a boring HTML page can still be very dynamic and even interactive. So here we have our skateboard, which is what we're gonna start with, a very basic view. And I've included some templates here that you'll be able to go into and see different templates that you can use so that you can iterate on. And you can even basically copy and paste any URL or any page to an agent and ask the agent to make an HTML version of that. But here you'll be able to see that it's very simple for an agent to set up an HTML page, which will be a much easier thing to work with when you're first starting out. If you're unsure, you might be thinking, why not React or Next.js or any other full stack application? But when you're first starting out, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just set up the most minimum viable product that gets you exactly what you need. The primary objective of this is for you to just have a landing page so that you can redirect everyone to all your other portfolio, socials, something about yourself. Let's go through a few examples now. So the most basic one that I had here is just a simple photo, contact, some context about yourself, but you can also point an agent to, let's say, this is a blogger that I admire and respect quite a bit. Steph has a really well-designed website, and you can point an agent to that, which I did here, just so that you can see how easy it is for an agent to make an HTML version, which doesn't have any servers, and you can configure it in the exact way you want, and then you can either copy them and enter your own context in, or I recommend building your own, but getting inspirations about specific things you like. Maybe you like these different badges or how they structure the projects. And here's another really popular security researcher that has a website, and I did the exact same thing here, and you can see here that the agent also created this, and so it created a dark mode of that, and then you can basically have your own website based off of that, and then you can ask the agent to use your content instead. If we go to another example, example, here's another website that is a little bit more dynamic where they have this personal side and then the professional side. And you might seen this really great technical writer, and they have a website that just talks about what they've done, stuff they've made. And this is something that you can do as well. And when you point it to an agent, they can also create the exact same thing as you see here. You have life, work, and then you can ask the agent to fill in with your own personal information, your work, your proof. So those are three really popular internet personas. I also have some friends who also set up their own GitHub pages. As you can see here, this is one of my friends who will actually be talking about a little bit more in a future video to set up your own custom domain so that you can get and send emails from that. And here it's a very basic site, as you can see, just their context about themselves, contact how you can reach them. They have a credibility section so you can learn about them as well as some apps they made, their writing that they have done. And then we have also cloned that here so you can basically create the exact same thing. And we can go different apps, blogs, podcast links. And then I have another friend here who has a really well-designed website as well, also hosted on GitHub Pages. And then they just talk about their contact information, what interests them so that they can attract other people who also are interested in those type of things. And similarly, you can see here that we've also created a HTML static page of the exact same thing. And lastly, this is another one of my friends who's a really great writer, and he's inspired me a lot to blog and do annual reviews as well. I used to write those as well. You can see here, he has a very brief intro, some context about himself, some blogs, interviews that he's done. And anytime you do an interview, you write a paper, some research or technical content, you can include that as well. He also has a newsletter that you can subscribe to. So if you have a newsletter, you can also put your newsletter on your landing page, your personal brand and personal website. And similarly, we also cloned this so that you can also create your own personal template website. And these are just some examples that you can use. In the same way, you can also clone my website. So if you go to my website here, you can just point this link to an agent, ask them to clone it as HTML, and then you can also use the exact same structure and format so that the agent can set this up for you. Now that we have your website working, we can kind of talk about what makes it work. So there are three jobs that makes a website reachable. When someone types in your name, your domain, we have a registrar where we use to purchase and rent that domain, that name. And then we have the DNS, which is the internet's address book. And then we have the host, which is the GitHub page that holds your files and deploys your live site. And oftentimes they can be three different companies, and there are some times where one company might play more than one role. So some familiar names where you might see is Squarespace, which does all three in one, or can do all three in one, where they have your name, the address book, and the host. Or we have the example that we went through today, which is GitHub page, which is just the host. And that's free so that you can fill in the gaps of the other two. And with Squarespace, two other common companies that you might have heard of is Wix and GoDaddy, which also do the same thing. And you can buy it as one simple box, or you can pick pieces by pieces and customize and lower your costs as you need. In the past, this might have made a lot more sense where you just wanted one site to manage everything end to end. And it was just much simpler to do that. But with AI agents, as we've seen just now, it's really easy to streamline a lot of that for a very basic website that you need, that you just want people to discover your socials all in one place, the research papers, the blogs that you wrote, whether that be on Substack, and it's just one area where all of that can exist. So now if we go back into the three jobs that make a website reachable, we can kind of see some of the other companies that exist that might play this role. And even though some of the more popular names that you've probably noticed was Squarespace, GoDaddy, there are other companies that play these roles as well. And in the video, we went over Spaceship, which is actually just a newer modern company of Namecheap, which is the second largest registry on the internet, which is a very old legacy company. This is where I bought my first domain. And so with Spaceship, you have all the legacy knowledge and expertise of Namecheap and a more modern UX and experience Spaceship, as well as an API surface that you saw in the demo where we're able to use the API to run everything end to end with an agent. So Spaceships allows us to buy the domain, and then there are other companies that are specialists, which is, for example, Cloudflare. Something to know about Cloudflare, even though they operate as the internet's address book, you can also buy a domain from them. But if you buy a domain from them, you also have to use them as a DNS. While if you buy one from Namecheap, Spaceship, some other registrar, you can use it in their name servers or other name servers. And then finally, as you saw, we had the host of GitHub Pages. So more often than not, you can use Namecheap, Spaceship, for their own DNS, their own name server, which is the one that they own. You can bring it to Cloudflare DNS, or let's say even AWS Route 53. But if you use Cloudflare, you can only use Cloudflare DNS. And for most of your use case, you might just need one and not have to think about any other one. And you might just want to use Cloudflare if you're willing to pay a standard rate. Generally, Namecheap and Spaceship do have more deals. We can get a domain for $1, $5. You saw in the video and demo that we bought one for $3. Cloudflare, usually you'll pay at market price. And so if you find a domain and you want to keep it very long term and just want one place to manage everything end to end, you might just use Cloudflare and Cloudflare DNS. And for more professional use cases, you might also want the ability to use it with AWS and Route 53. But for this video, probably just using a more modern, simple Spaceship that is cheap, easy. You can point to any registrar. That will probably be sufficient for your use. But in a future video, we'll go through in more detail about what else you can do with, let's say, a specialist as Cloudflare. And let's say you didn't mind having it all be owned one by one company, then you can kind of see what you'll be able to do with that in the future video. So you're looking for a domain to buy, and you'll commonly see this acronym TLD, which is top level domain, that being .com, .io, .blog, .cc, as you saw that I purchased. And if you're picking out one to buy, you should look at two costs. You should look at the sticker costs, which on Namecheap and Spaceship will generally have discounts, cheap domains in the first year, but you should also keep in mind the renewal. After the first year, you might have to pay a high premium, whether that be $20, $50. And so you might want to look at that if you do want to keep this for the long term. Generally, .com will be a very trustworthy long-term bet, and I would actually prefer that. And as you can see in my website, I use .com. If you can find one using some variant of your name with .com, I would highly recommend that. If you have the money and you see a .com that you like or a variant of .com you like, I'd reach for that first. But if you're unsure and you just wanted to try it out for a year, see if you actually use your landing page, maybe using that sticker price of $1 with a higher premium with the renewal might be good enough. And you can always migrate or bring your website to a new domain afterwards. And I've done that a few times as well. With AI agents, it's really easy to switch up domains as you need. I've had and bought many domains that I've let expired, never used. If you're buying your first domain, maybe that $1 or $2 one will be simple to start. You can upgrade later on, similar to the MVP conversation that we had, where only upgrade to the next one as you need it. But if you're sure, go for the .com. We set up a very basic HTML website with Hello World, but now I'm gonna ask the agent, I'm gonna use, let's say, Pi this time, and I'm gonna ask it to change it so that we set up a very basic template that we had before. So we're gonna use a shortcut, Option C, to look at some of our templates. So we're gonna do that. Now we're in the templates. We're gonna do a list tree so we can find that. And a little known trick to really quickly get the path for an agent to view is I'm gonna do PWD, which gives me this path here. One of the nice things about Pi is once we get the full path for the working directory we're in, as you can see right here, let's say I had that path here, and now I can see that I wanna go to the template folder. So I'll do docs tab, HTML tab, template tab, and then tab here, I can actually see exactly what I want. Change my site to this here. And then I can ask the agent to update my hello world, which is the HTML site. And the one thing here to note is as you have it changed that, and now that we have this website hosted, if you go back to Chrome here, this is our hosted website. But if we go into our GitHub, we'll actually see that whenever we make changes to our website, we push it to the public GitHub repo. We also have to make sure that we want to view it locally first. So we're going to ask Pi for that. Can you start the server locally so I can view it before we push? And so here you can ask Pi to do that now that Pi has set up our index.html, which is the site that just allows us to see at the root that. You can then use Pi to slowly iterate on our skateboard and basically build out a website so that now we can have this. And so now we can ask Pi to change the name to be Andy, and then we'll be able to see that change as the agent makes those changes. And as you slowly build out your website, let's say you started with just that website here. We go back to this, we refresh this, and you'll see that my name is Andy now, Andy here. You can just slowly keep adding to this and be like, oh, okay, actually this is my socials, my GitHub, my Twitter, my email. And let's say you wanted a different website or a different template. Let's actually to change it to be this one right here. Change it to be this now. And you can now have Pi slowly build that car for you slowly and incrementally. And then over time, you'll be able to build the exact website that you want. And maybe later on, you want it to be a lot more interactive and you'll have to move to a full stack application. But this is kind of just the stepping stones for you to learn and grow and ask the agent how to do certain things. And then now we go back into this site, you can refresh, and now you'll see that, okay, we have this new website complete. And when you push it, you'll now have this new domain serve the website you have right here. And so with that, you'll see, we start this video with you might just have some socials and you move from just rented free account to a $2 a year or maybe $10 a year account that has your own domain and the exact website that you want. In the next video, we'll show you how to set up a way to connect your domain to your email so that you can send emails and receive emails in a way that you might with your work email, all for free.